In the heart of a forgotten town stands a palace shrouded in mystery, a monolith of a bygone era, its once grand facade now weathered by time. The palace sits in brooding silence. Its location, tucked away in the forgotten corners of an old town, only amplifies the eerie aura that surrounds it. Rumors whisper through the town, stories of a spectral inhabitant, a ghost if you will, that has made the palace its eternal abode. Whispers in the wind tell tales of its chilling presence, an icy touch that permeates the palace's ancient walls. The palace, they say, swallows those who dare to enter. Adventurous souls, thrill seekers, and even skeptics, all lured by the enthralling mystery of the haunted palace, have vanished without a trace. The silence that follows their disappearance is as chilling as the ghostly whispers that echo through the palace's deserted halls. No one who has ventured within its walls has ever returned. One day, a bold adventurer named Mark decided to challenge the whispers of the town. Mark was unlike your average Joe. He was a thrill seeker, a man who thrived on adrenaline rushes, who lived for the stories others were too afraid to even whisper about. Mark was a professional adventurer, the kind who had scaled the highest peaks and plumbed the deepest oceans. Yet the haunted palace was a different beast altogether. The town was rife with tales of the palace's malevolent ghost, a spectral entity that had claimed countless lives of those who dared to venture within. But Mark, he was different. He wasn't just looking for another adrenaline fix. No, he had a personal score to settle. A childhood friend had once ventured into the palace, never to return. Mark was determined to solve the mystery that had haunted him for years. He spent days preparing for the adventure. He read every scrap of information he could find about the palace and its ghostly resident. He studied the architectural plans, the histories, the accounts of those few who had escaped with their lives. Mark was thorough, leaving no stone unturned in his quest for answers. He packed his bag with essentials: flashlights, batteries, a compass, a map of the palace, a first aid kit, and a small camera to document his journey. He also carried a small locket, a memento from his lost friend, a symbol of the mission he was about to undertake. But it wasn't just physical preparation that Mark was focused on. He also steeled his mind, readying himself for the psychological onslaught the palace was sure to unleash. He practiced meditation, honed his focus, and bolstered his mental resilience. There was no room for fear or doubt in Mark's mind. As the day of the adventure neared, Mark felt a strange mix of anticipation and resolve. He knew the risks, he knew the stories, but he also knew that he was ready. Fear was not an option. It was a challenge he had accepted, a journey he was determined to see through. With a determined heart, Mark stepped through the palace gates. As soon as Mark entered, he felt a chill run down his spine. A gust of wind whistled through the hollow halls of the palace, carrying with it the faint scent of antiquity and decay, a silent testament to the many years of neglect this place had endured. The high ceilings loomed above him, shrouded in shadows, as if hiding secrets of a time long forgotten. The air was heavy, saturated with an eerie silence that was only broken by the occasional creak of the wooden floors beneath his feet. Mark ventured deeper into the palace, his heart pounding in his chest. Each room he passed was shrouded in an impenetrable darkness, a void that seemed to consume any light that dared to venture in. His flashlight was his only companion, casting long, ominous shadows that danced and flickered on the crumbling walls. The atmosphere was stifling, as though he were walking through a thick fog of unease. As he moved further into the labyrinth of corridors and rooms, he could feel an unseen presence following him. It was subtle at first, a fleeting shadow at the corner of his eye, a whisper barely discernible over the steady drip, drip, drip of water somewhere in the distance. But as he moved deeper into the palace, the presence grew stronger, more tangible, as though something was drawing closer to him. Suddenly, a cold gust of wind blew through the hallway, extinguishing his flashlight. Mark was plunged into darkness. His heartbeat echoed in his ears, a steady thump, thump, thump that seemed to be the only sound in the world. He fumbled for his flashlight, but his hands were trembling too much to be of any use. And then, in the pitch-black silence, he heard it. A soft, whispering voice, like the rustle of silk against stone. It was barely audible, but it was there, growing louder with each passing second. The echoes of his footstep were drowned by an unknown whispering voice. In the flickering candlelight, Mark saw a figure that was both there and not there, like a wisp of smoke dancing in the wind. A shiver ran down his spine as he realized this was the ghost of the haunted palace. The figure was ethereal, a spectral presence that seemed to glow in the dim light. It was a woman, dressed in an old-fashioned gown, her face obscured by a veil of sorrow and longing. She seemed to be trapped in time, a relic of a bygone era that was out of place in the modern world. Mark could feel the chill in the air intensify as her icy gaze locked onto his. Mark's heart pounded in his chest like a drum, his breath hitching in his throat. He was frozen in place, unable to move, unable to look away. He could feel the ghost's sadness, her loneliness, her desperation. It was as if he was drawn into her world, experiencing her pain and her torment. But then, the ghost moved. She reached out towards him, her hand extended, her fingers twitching. It was a gesture that was both pleading and threatening, a silent command for him to stay, to join her in her eternal sorrow. Suddenly, the fear took over. Mark turned and ran, his heart pounding in his ears, his breath coming in ragged gasps. He could hear the ghost's wails behind him, the sound echoing through the empty halls of the palace. He could feel her presence, her anger, her desperation. It was as if she was chasing him, her spectral form gliding effortlessly through the air. The palace turned into a maze, the corridors twisting and turning, the walls closing in. Mark could feel his strength waning, his legs growing heavy, his breath coming in short, sharp gasps. But he couldn't stop. He couldn't give in. He had to escape. He had to survive. Fleeing for his life, Mark stumbled upon a hidden room. A room that held secrets. Secrets that could change everything. Secrets that could save him or doom him. But for now, he was safe. For now, he was alive. Inside the room, Mark found something that piqued his curiosity. Shrouded in layers of mystery, the room seemed to breathe a life of its own. It was a place that time seemed to have forgotten, a cryptic sanctuary holding secrets from a bygone era. As Mark ventured further, he was greeted by an array of artifacts, each one a silent testament to the room's history. There were ancient paintings adorning the walls, their subjects' eyes seeming to follow him around the room. A grand, dusty chandelier hung from the ceiling, its crystals shimmering eerily in the dim light. The air was heavy with a sense of foreboding, a tangible shroud of fear that hung like a veil. A massive, antiquated bookshelf caught his attention, its shelves brimming with books of all shapes and sizes. Intrigued, Mark began to explore the contents. Among the faded and tattered volumes, he discovered a book that stood out from the rest. It was bound in black leather and seemed to pulsate with an energy that was almost palpable. Mark could not resist the magnetic pull of this tome. As he opened the cover, a gust of wind whipped through the room, extinguishing the candles. The shadows seemed to dance around him, an ominous ballet in the darkness. He felt a chill run down his spine as he began to read. The book held tales of the ghost that haunted the palace, its tragic past, and more importantly, a potential way to escape its spectral grip. As realization dawned on him, Mark felt a glimmer of hope. Could this be the key to his survival? Could he possibly defeat the ghost and break the palace's curse? His heart pounded in his chest, a wild drum echoing his newfound determination. Just as he was about to uncover the secret, the door slammed shut. The sound echoed through the room, a chilling reminder of the presence that lurked within the palace walls. Mark was not alone in the room of secrets, and the ghost was watching. Mark, trapped in the room, could hear the ghost's whisper growing louder. Fear began to take root, blossoming into a chilling dread that made his heart pound like a drum. His breath hitched, every exhale seeming to echo in the silence. Each tick of the clock was a countdown to the unknown, the suspense thickening like fog around him. The whisper was no longer a whisper. It was a voice from the other side, a voice that carried the weight of centuries. It grew louder, closer. The ghost was approaching, its spectral presence chilling the air, making the room seem smaller, darker. Mark could feel it now, the icy tendrils of fear wrapping around his heart, squeezing tighter. The whisper was now a deafening scream, a banshee's wail that echoed through the haunted palace. His heart pounded in his chest, his breath came in ragged gasps. The climax was near. The end was coming. As the whisper turned into a deafening scream, the screen turns to black.